Previously, Zan and the others had saved Yifan, with Zan taking care of Zhao's men. But just as Zhao attempted to flee, Zan caught up to him and ended his life. Meanwhile, the city lord, pleased that Zan had taken the bait, gave the order for Zan to be arrested for killing Zhao. Now to this week's chapter. Time passed as Zan walked toward the building's exit alone. While many other contractors watched him, he understood how important it was to distance himself from the others on his team. Staying would only drag them into the mess he had created. His thoughts lingered on Yue, knowing she would only leave if he promised to do something for her. As he stepped outside, Zan saw someone standing in front of him. He immediately understood they were there for him and wondered how they had arrived so quickly. Looking up, he saw the person declare that Zan had attacked and killed a key member of the organization. They demanded that Zan surrender. The person unleashed their power, an overwhelming force that drove Zan to his knees. He struggled but found himself unable to react, completely unable to overpower the immense strength before him. Meanwhile, far away, John's master was having tea with a friend and wondered why his companion remained so secretive about their identity, especially since they had known each other for years. The hooded figure ignored the question and instead asked why Li seemed so unbothered. Li, puzzled, asked what he meant. The hooded figure explained that the successor Li had chosen was already imprisoned, with solid evidence proving the alleged act. He added that the public execution was scheduled for tomorrow. Hearing this, Li fell silent, his mind racing as the words sank in. This was the first time he had heard such news, and it left him stunned. Slowly, a dark energy began to build around him, his killing intent unmistakable. He locked eyes with his old friend, his voice cold and filled with disbelief. He couldn't understand why his friend was doing this to him, why they were turning against him after all these years. The hooded figure reminded Li that he was only a clone, and killing him wouldn't accomplish anything. They added that old Shang had created many clones for everyone, making them all replaceable. Li's killing intent slowly faded as he understood there was no point in attacking. He stood there for a moment, thinking, then let out a sigh. He muttered to himself that he had forgotten about it and joked that it must be due to his old age, trying to brush off the heavy realization. The clone slowly faded away, and Li smiled, commenting that Zan wouldn't be a problem. He looked ahead, confident, and added that there were still more moves to make on the chessboard. Just then, one of Li's disciples approached him and asked if they should go and save their junior brother. Li calmly took a sip of tea, as if the question were of little concern. Li gazed at the teacup in his hand, his expression thoughtful. He commented that he had let Zan handle things in that area, thinking he could solve the problems there. However, he still hadn't been able to uncover who was controlling the area, and getting close to Zan remained impossible. A smile curled on his lips as he continued, saying that they had assumed using Zhao to lure Zan out would work to their advantage. But who was to say that Zhao wasn't the bait that he had set himself? Li looked down into his teacup, his gaze distant as he mused aloud. He commented that the world was like a chess game, where each piece made new moves, constantly shifting the balance. With a small smirk, he added a quiet thanks to Hanzan for his hard work, acknowledging how useful the pieces on the board had been in setting the stage for what was to come. Meanwhile, Zan sat tied to a chair in an interrogation room, his body stiff and bruised. The man from earlier approached, his voice cold as he asked if Zan still refused to plead guilty. Zan, confused, questioned what he had done wrong, insisting that there was a bug in Zhao's head. The old man's patience snapped. He struck Zan hard and coldly reminded him that dumb answers only get dumb responses. The old man grabbed Zhan's head firmly, his grip tightening as he spoke. He coldly stated that Zan should understand by now that Li Shetong had left him here to die and would not be showing up to save him. The old man then presented two options. The first was for Zan to join them, as they represented the future, while Li was from the old age. The second option was far darker. Zan could accept the charges and face public execution tomorrow. Jan's eyes narrowed as he questioned the old man. He asked if they had deliberately allowed Yiming to find the Fourth Order Eclipse Zerg parasite queen and bring it back to the city. The old man smiled, his gaze unfazed, and said that Zan could see it that way if he wished. He then explained that not all Zerg monsters were their enemies. In fact, they could be controlled and used as powerful tools, something the old man believed they could harness to their advantage. A small smile tugged at Jean's lips as the truth finally clicked in his mind. He looked up at the old man, his expression shifting to one of clarity. With a calm voice, he stated that he had now decided what he wanted. The old man leaned in, his curiosity piqued as he asked what Jean had chosen. Jean smiled, his eyes gleaming with a newfound resolve. He calmly stated that he would choose the third option, then added with a smirk that the old man was just an old geezer. The old man's expression darkened, his anger boiling over. He slammed his fist down and snapped that no one was coming for Jean. He told him it was over, that there was no escape from what was about to happen. The next day, the execution of Jean was announced to the public. The loudspeakers echoed through the city as it was declared that Jean had betrayed the organization and killed an important member. His crimes were unforgivable, and he must pay the ultimate price for his actions. The city lord sat quietly, lost in thought, as a soldier stepped forward to report that everything was prepared for the execution. The soldier stood, waiting for the command to begin, but the city lord remained still, his expression hardening. He then asked if they had tracked down the others who had managed to escape the previous day. The soldier, visibly scared, hesitated before replying that they had not yet found them. It seemed they were hiding in the villa. The city lord, his expression hardening, sharply told the soldier to stop and leave. The soldier nodded quickly, agreeing without a word, and turned to carry out the order. The city lord looked down at Jean, his gaze sharp as he wondered aloud why Jean remained so calm. He couldn't help but question if Jean had some hidden trump card up his sleeve, something he was waiting to reveal at the last moment. Meanwhile, Jean sat quietly, his thoughts racing. He remembered how his master had hinted for him to go to this area and shake things up, urging him to let things unfold when the time came. His master had promised to cover everything once it happened. Jean wondered why his master had given him such a hint. It became clear to him that his master must have known this was all going to happen and had set up a trap, orchestrating everything from the start. Meanwhile, people in the crowd looked up at Jean and began to murmur among themselves. They recognized him, and one of them questioned why he was up there, tied for execution. Another voice asked if Jean was truly a traitor. Someone else in the crowd added that they had heard Jean had killed many people, including a high-ranking official in the city. The whispers grew louder as more people tried to make sense of what was happening. Just then, the city lord's voice rang out, greeting everyone in Deep Blue City. The crowd fell silent as they looked up, curious to see who was speaking. The city lord's presence commanded attention, and all eyes turned to him as he prepared to address the gathering. The crowd was in shock, not expecting such a powerful figure to appear for what seemed like a small issue. Whispers filled the air as people questioned why the city lord had come himself to oversee such an event. The presence of someone so important stirred unease and curiosity, as they wondered what deeper significance lay behind his appearance. The city lord spoke with a heavy tone, explaining that he was deeply saddened by the events that had unfolded. Anger simmered beneath his words as he lamented that they were about to lose someone with such incredible talent, someone who could have had a great future. However, because of personal grudges, Jean had taken innocent lives. The city lord went on to say that Jean was also the cause of the insect tribe's troubles, which could have brought great harm to the city. He turned to the crowd and asked what should be done with someone like Jean. Without hesitation, the people screamed in unison, shouting that Jean should be killed. The city lord smiled, a dark satisfaction crossing his face. He thought to himself that this had been too easy. With a chilling tone, he declared aloud that Hanzon was going to die today. The crowd's response fueled his confidence, and he prepared to see the execution through to the end. A moment later, the city lord screamed for the execution to begin. The soldier, standing nearby, quickly nodded in acknowledgement and shouted, "Yes." He pulled the lever, and the sound of the mechanism echoed through the tense silence, signaling the start of Jean's fate. As Jean's execution began, he stayed calm, showing no fear or panic. His expression remained steady as everything unfolded around him. It was as if he had already accepted what was happening. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like. It really helps me out.